Hello and welcome to Property Matters, a weekly look at all matters property designed to be of interest to anyone who has an interest in the property market. And Property Matters is supported by Fairview International and of course also auctionproperty.co.uk. Big stories in the news this week concerning the property market, and we're going to get straight into those today. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our channel, of course, so you get notifications when we go live. And also, if you'd like to get in touch, propertymatterstv@gmail.com. Joining us as always, Joe Joshi. Morning, Joe.
Good morning, Paul. Good morning. Yeah, what a week we've got. Plenty going on in the property world. Never a dull moment, as we all know. It's the most exciting subject. Of course, you've got me here to talk about it, as I'd like to talk about it every week with you.
Yeah, indeed. Let's get straight into our first story, which of course was the Queen's speech. We all saw that in the week. Well, it wasn't actually the Queen's speech, was it? It was Charles's speech in the end, but the Queen's speech is what it's known as. And right in the beginning of that, and indeed the following day, comes out the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill. A lot of words, a lot of verbiage, but essentially what's happening, and you can see immediately why Robert Jenrick, who was the previous housing minister, has been moved on from his role, because this could not be more different to what he'd suggested in his paper in 2020. He was basically saying, look, we need to get the planning system speeded up, which is what everyone agreed would be a good idea. And therefore, we would have certain areas of our local communities which would be completely available for, areas that have been previously developed. They could immediately be used, and you could get pretty much permission to do whatever you want on that land without any problems at all. This completely different. This devolves all the responsibility from the government to the local communities, as you've probably seen on the news this week. So the policy paper released this week explains how through the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill and subsequent legislation and policy, the government will give local leaders and communities the tools they need to make better places. It's an ambitious programme, they say, to reduce inequality and close the gap in productivity, health, incomes and opportunity between the southeast and the rest of the country. It's interesting they said the southeast specifically and not the southwest, but I don't know why that might be the case. But they're putting a legal basis in place for the setting and reporting against the Levelling Up missions, and the bill will create a legal duty for the government to set and report a number of missions for the levelling up of the country. And they'll devolve those powers across the UK, wherever people want them. That's the interesting bit, to control budgets, transport, skills. And the bill provides a new devolution structure which simplifies existing arrangements for devolving power, which are complicated and burdensome, they say, at the moment. It delivers models that will allow all parts of the country, not just major cities, to benefit from bespoke devolution deals, giving local leaders the powers to meet their community needs. It's an interesting change in emphasis, isn't it, Joe? What's your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, a lot packed in there, potentially in the white paper that's coming, and there's always changes happening in the property industry, and some of it I welcome, some of it I'm a bit skeptical about. The reasons that is that when you devolve the powers and give them to the local people, not always done the way it should be done, and if it gets in the wrong hands, you end up having problems on your hand, and you actually almost wonder if it should go back to the centre place. I suppose there's another tier that gets created, so if they do actually manage to muck it up, then obviously the government will have to step in and try and deal with it. But yes, I mean, there's lots of areas that are very, very welcome in this forthcoming white paper once it's actually done and published. And it's good to see that in the Queen's speech, or as you say, Charles's words, this the Queen's words and Charles speaking, I suppose, is the right way of dealing with it, is now sort of setting out that there is a levelling up to be done. I'm a bit concerned about this levelling up because it's a very big challenge as far as I'm concerned. And as you say earlier on, they've mentioned the southeast specifically because it is a powerhouse in its own right, and to actually take some of those from there into perhaps Midlands North and other areas of the country. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of sort of strategic moves that have to be made in order to actually try and bring some sort of sanity, some sort of levelling up that they're trying to do. I appreciate that, and I think it's good to see that they want to do the levelling up. And of course, over the last couple of years, as you know, through the pandemic, way we think and work and do all sorts of things have actually now changed as well. So there is definitely scope in that. It's almost like you have to ask yourself, did they know the pandemic was coming in order to be having this white paper to say that there's a levelling up going on to start that? It sort of makes it a little bit dubious that was there a means to an end here, not necessarily from our government, but they've utilised it well in order to try and bring that into some sort of system. But those changes have actually made lots of changes worldwide, and we're hearing and listening to those every day, all the time, about how that structure is. So it's just amazing to see what a couple of years out. In other words, the shop was closed for 2 years or thereabouts, on and off, and it's actually changed and transformed the world everywhere. But certainly for us in the UK, in the property market, we can see that there is going to be massive changes coming. And some of it is excellent, especially when you look at areas of your town where high streets are particularly of interest to myself, because I've spent years and years moving people into towns, and the focal point of every town, Paul, is always the high street, and the high streets have to a large extent been decimated by allowing out of town shopping centres and facilities, and that not regenerating the town correctly. And that makes a huge problem for the people, and it's also become a bit of a ghetto. So on one side they do well, on another side they actually don't get it right.
Well, let me just give you, because the next bit I was going to come on to was the high street, because it's specifically mentioned in the white paper. What I see is a situation like we've had with some of the city mayors. So you've got a mayor in Manchester, you've got a mayor in London, and I see somebody sitting in a similar sort of role in smaller communities, from what I read in here. And they will be responsible for building these communities, if you like. And there will be an office, which we'll come on to in a minute, which will support them with all the knowledge to do that. I mean, where the money is going to come from and where the expertise is going to come from this defies belief. And it's very similar to the police commissioners. There'll be sort of an elected role, I suspect. But it says here, empowering local leaders to regenerate towns and cities and restore local pride in places. It's all the usual verbiage, but there's some specifics here, so bear with me. The bill strengthens and adds to the tools that can be used to deliver regeneration and make good use of previously developed lands. It will invigorate the high street by making changes to outdoor seating permanent and allow local authorities to fill vacant commercial properties such as shops through high street rental auctions. It will also enhance compulsory purchase powers to make it easier to establish locally led development corporations and improve transparency about the ownership and control of land. It will also empower local authorities to double the standard council tax rate on any home left empty for longer than a year rather than 2 currently, encouraging more empty towns back into productive use while raising additional revenue to invest back in communities. It's an interesting set of statements there. So basically, they can hold auctions for empty shops, and they can have compulsory purchase powers to get them back, to get them to do what they want. And also, your council tax will double if you don't have the property occupied after a year.
Yeah, I think all are good things, as long as the council are also held to account themselves, because they have a lot of properties that sit doing nothing, and maybe they should actually be paying the privilege of having them lying there doing nothing. It would bring back a tremendous amount of properties back into use, especially residential properties, when they are crying out for more homes for people that are needing bigger properties, or families that are needing new homes. There is always lots and lots of properties in the area that I see that belong to local authorities, let alone what the private sector have. But yeah, all are welcome. I think if it's going to generate and motivate the towns in the right way, then I'm all for it. The reason I'm all for it is that it is the hub of every town. Any high street, doesn't matter how long or short or big it is. A high street is a high street. It's always known as the focal point, and people want that to be regenerated. They want that life put back into the heart of a town. They want that to be the community centre. They want all of those things so that there's a sense of belonging. And whether you are a millennial who wants to order a pizza online, or whether you are an elderly person who likes to visit a town and the bus service provides it, then all of those have a call for the high street. I think they kind of lost their ways when out of town shopping centres started to be created, which of course in their own right have done well. But what they have done is killed every high street going because people don't want to go there. So it's good to see that they're going to consider auctioning empty properties for rental, especially if it's forced upon landlords who just sit there and say, okay, well, I'll just wait and wait and wait. And of course, you know, being that we are auction property, we'll be delighted to be given those instructions. Never miss an opportunity, Paul. You know me, and get those get get those instructions in so that we can make sure that we drive that town to be filled up as quickly as possible, and always happy to drop the gavel on the nearest person that wants to buy that. So yeah, I think excellent stuff all round as far as my view is concerned for the white paper and the levelling up, and certainly the towns. The other bits will have its teething issues. Of course, it's the horse and the cart situation here. They've got to get the teething issues sorted out before we can get excited about what they're going to do and who the right people are going to be when they actually get those so-called mayor's job. And you know, I'm always happy to put my hand up for that if they want me to do that, because I will be a real pain in the rear to try and get the town centres sorted out. You heard it here first, of course. Property Matters, 15th of May. You know, I'm there, ready for the job.
Do you know, I still try to keep this completely non-political, but so what they're going to do is they're going to create these combined county authorities. So that's basically your local county council or your unitary authority, depending on where you are, obviously, and your local council, so the district council. So basically, what the government is saying is those two have got to work together to deliver this. Now, every year when it comes down to the budget situation, the councils are moaning they get less and less money to do the services that they want. So where on earth is all the money going to come from for them to have all these new employed people to do this, including a locally elected mayor or governor or county commissioner, as they're going to be called, apparently. And, you know, all of this, then they've got to then have all these debates with the local community about whether somebody wants something built at the end of their garden. And they'll have to have an election with all of the people in the street, that kind of thing. It's just so wishy-washy. And at the end of the day, this was all originally about speeding up the process of building houses so that we can get people into properties. That's what this was supposed to be about. And this just seems to make it even more complicated.
Oh yeah, as I said, nothing is more exciting than complicating the basics of life. That's what I said. It's the horse and the cart situation here. We've got to get this part sorted out before we can dream on about what could potentially happen. I can't think of any government that hasn't been trying to simplify the planning situation. It just is not doable. I mean, recently in all the areas that I've been working in and planning issue, mostly it's about, funny enough, staff. They haven't got the staff to actually maintain the planning applications, or they're farming it out to you know, sort of independent companies who are now sort of setting up the rules to say they can do it, and never the twain shall meet. It just doesn't get it there. I mean, planning applications have been sitting on their desks for way beyond the given time that they want to do it in. And the developer suffers a lot for that, because, you know, there is an ambition, and if they've borrowed money, bought a site and decided to go and do some planning on it, the planners are to be held responsible. In fact, they should be actually penalised for every week they go over. It should be a bit like you know, literally a penalty. If they can't do it at a certain time, then the council. Of course, as you rightly say, where are they going to get the money from? The council will. It's the same old purse strings, isn't it? It's going to go back to the taxpayer. It's going to back to the you and I's of the world, and we end up coughing up more money on either rates or any other way that we're going to be able to pay. And it goes round and round and round. I mean, there's no magical tree, irrespective of everybody thinking that there's one at the bottom of the garden, one's got £50 notes on it, the other one's got 20 on it, and these are the little ones got £5 on it, and then there's the little plastic one with a £10 on it. You just go and pick them off and just turn around and say, there you are, that's that. It just doesn't work like that. We end up paying for it in a different way, round and round, as we go. But it is going to be literally, the public paying for these things. And the sorry situation is going to be you're appointing someone who sits there and dithers for the next 2 years of whether they can do this or whether they can't do it, but obviously, claim the payment for it. So it's a long shot. It's a good idea, but I'm not 100% it's there. I would love it to be just as simple as, there's the swing of the pen and say, here you are, signed, sealed, and delivered. Off you go. Let's get on with it. But maybe not in my lifetime. I don't know. We'll see.
Here's a question for you. What do you think is the percentage of local authorities that have a current up-to-date plan in place? So the local plan that you do.
Yeah.
What do you think the percentage is of authorities that have actually got a plan in place?
I'd be shocked if there's any of them actually got a plan in place, but I'd probably take a punt of like a 2% or 3% maybe.
Well, it's actually 39%. So just over a third have got a plan in place. So I think this is where some of the frustration is coming from. So there is in the majority of local authorities no plan in place whatsoever. So they're suggesting new local planning commissioners will be deployed to support or ultimately take over the planning if the local planning fails to meet their statutory duties. And this will increase the number of authorities that have a plan in place, that was quite surprising to find that actually. But that does seem, if there is no plan in place, that does seem a sensible thing. But they're also going to have a suite of digital tools, if you please, which give them all the instructions to do this. So it just goes on. But the one thing I wanted to move on to actually was a locally set infrastructure levy. Now, this is going to be the one that's going to be interesting to our developers that watch with us here. The government wants to make sure that more of the money accrued by landowners and developer goes towards funding local infrastructure. So this is the affordable housing, schools, GP surgeries and roads that new development creates the need for. So to do this, the bill will replace the current system of developer contributions with a simple, mandatory and locally determined infrastructure levy. Bill sets out the framework for the new levy, and the detailed design will be delivered through regulation. So this is going to be locally charged, locally managed by the local council. And basically, there's going to be a set structure that you will have to pay, and you pay this money when the property is sold. So there's another tax on top. So this is all going to be set in figures. So there's no debate about it. And similarly, when it comes to negotiating that new housing development, and they sit there arguing with the council about the number of affordable homes, there will be a set mandatory percentage of any development that has to be affordable homes. So that's where there's an interesting change for developers, where they need to take note.
Yes, and again, who's going to pay for it? It's the buyers at the end of it who's going to have to pay more prices for the same properties. Because I'm already having discussions with developers where building costs have already, gone through the roof, or they're having problems getting building materials to finish their projects. So any of these extra costs are only going to reduce the time span. I mean, they're just going to, the speed of the process of the whole thing of developing all these new homes is just going to be reduced, because they'll spend a good amount of time trying to negotiate. Now, a lot of the developers historically have negotiated reducing the social housing aspect, which I understand, and of course, we have to support that situation as agents and auctioneers, because we want the properties back in, built to ready to sell. So everybody has a stake in the deal, but a lot of them negotiate the social housing out. And so we continue to suffer for producing the number of social affordable housing that is available for people, which really puts a mockery on the idea of Boris thinking that he should consider selling on social housing. In a recent muted discussion that he had, saying that that could be something that we could do like Margaret Thatcher did many years ago. And it's just really a ridiculous thing to do that. On one side, you want developers to cough up and pay or make contributions or have reductions in their overall profitability, yet the council and the government can turn around and say, well, actually, we thank you very much for giving us those social housings, and we're now thinking about selling those because we need the money back in. So it kind of doesn't really gel well as far as the developers are concerned. But certainly, I think it's good to see that I suppose the good thing that I can see in this is that they're actually going to say that this is a fixed thing. So the amount will be fixed, or the number of social housing will be fixed, and maybe they'll make some inroad in towards that deficit of affordable housing.
It's called the right to require. That's that section. There's going to be a new office for place, which is a strange title. This is going to support local planning authorities and communities to turn their vision of a beautiful design into local standards that the new developments should meet. And they're also going to continue to support design code pathfinders, offering support and funding to the 25 areas across the UK to produce local design codes. And these will then be used as examples to other. And finally, they're going to add a biodiversity net gain to any planning application. So you're going to have to show how you're going to get a gain in biodiversity from late 2023. And Active Travel England will now be involved as the government's new advisor on sustainable transport, which will also become a statutory consultee for key planning decisions. And the Environmental Agency's role will be expanded to ensure development near waste sites is acceptable. So in other words, rather than speeding up the planning process, just more and more layers of more hoops to jump through for developers.
Yeah, it's not like I said, it's the horse and cart. It's got to have a system that's going to set in before we get to this stage. And at the moment, all they're doing is adding layers. And in fact, what they're really doing is passing the buck here, aren't they? On the basis that they don't want to have the responsibility at central, so they're giving it to the towns, and the towns probably are not going to be able to find the funds, the resources, and the people that are going to be able to do this. So it'll probably be another prolonged issue, but yet another good idea that probably hasn't really been properly thought through. But as I say, watch this space. Let's see what happens.
So, what do you think about it? Do give us a comment in the comment section below. Please let us know exactly what you feel. And as I say that, Guy has said good morning. And Guy, it means a lot more costs, and it's the landowner and the developer that ultimately pays. Well, I think that's true, isn't it, Joe? Morning, Guy.
Yeah, I think Guy, you're in the UK from what I can see. So welcome back, and I think you might have brought a bit of sun with you. So
The
that's
sociable
good
hour of the
news.
day for him to be watching in the UK.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Of course, as I said earlier on, it's the end is either the buyer that's going to pay for it because the prices will go up, or the developer will pay for it because, and so the margins gets reduced. It's someone's going to pay for it. It's definitely not just going to sort of drop out the sky for it. And those layers are definitely going to make a huge problem because it's going to be more and more people in the system. So I concur with Guy's thoughts on that.
Anybody else got any views on whether we think that this new levelling up and regeneration bill is a good thing? Have we moved in the right direction, do you think, or are we just adding in? Well, I'm kind of trying to sway your answer, I guess, but the view that we've come up with here is it seems more levels of bureaucracy to go through. So we'll leave that one. Give us your thoughts on that one, if you would, in the comment section wherever you're watching us. An interesting story that I wanted to cover this morning about buy-to-let mortgages, Joe. The cost of them is surging at the moment. This might be something that Bob, if he's watching, can comment on. Mortgage costs have risen by over £100 so far this year on a £160,000 buy-to-let mortgage, according to figures from buy-to-let broker Property Master. It's a relentless climb, and this was done before the increase of the Bank of England rate a couple of weeks ago. So this is before the fourth raise in the interest rate. Current turbulence in the money market is also making it more difficult for some lenders to raise funds. So there's a fear that as well as a higher mortgage cost, landlords will face reduced costs. It is fascinating that people, because they're seeing the mortgage rates rising, some people are panicking and trying to get on the housing ladder as quickly as possible. So estate agents are reporting that the people registering to to buy at the moment are higher than they were a year ago when the stamp duty holiday was on. So that's a really interesting set of information, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it's interesting that the analysis are pointing in the fact that people are still out there looking to buy, and they are looking to buy, Paul, on the basis that during the pandemic period there was some savings made, and obviously it wasn't always right for people that hadn't perhaps saved enough to be able to put the deposit down to buy. And of course, now that the interest rates on the bank have been going up, the buy-to-let ones are because they're commercially minded are going to go up, and so subsequently there is probably lesser money available or lesser lenders available who have the extra money to lend out. It's a vicious circle. It's again, so how many deposits, how many savers do they have, and how much money they can actually borrow, and what rate they can borrow at in order to be able to lend it out to buy-to-let people. But the demand in the buy-to-let, and let alone just ordinary purchases, is very high. I mean, there's a reduction in what is available homes in the marketplace, and most agents are really stating that they don't have enough stock. What they have is either under offer or sold. So that's a good sign for the agency world, because obviously they're getting on with the job, and the ones that are hanging around, what that tells you is that they are ambitiously priced. We've always believed that if a property is priced correctly, within days it will find a home. If it isn't, it will hang around for a while until it comes to a price that is. So it is only worth what somebody's prepared to pay for it. And that line is the same for not just ordinary buying property, but it's also the same for a developer trying to buy a development, because at the end of the day, if they can make the thing work more profitably, depending on the costs of building it, they'll pay the right money for it. If it doesn't, then it will just hang around until somebody comes to a price that is actually doable. So I think in terms of the stock, yeah, there is a shortage of stock generally, and of course seasonally this time of the year, spring is a hot time, not just literally the weather time, but it's a hot time for the property market, because people plan to sort of do their move prior to the summer breaks, or move over the summer break. So there are 3 or 4 windows in a year where the housing market always has escalated, but that window has actually gradually also reduced, Paul, because people working in a different way also mean that they're away sometimes. They're working from another country. They can take their work away, and they can work remotely and so forth. So all of those things have changed. But when I started, I'm sure Guy watching will tell you, I mean, there was a set time where you knew there's a window of certain things that will happen, and people wanted to move in, for example, before Christmas was always a way that people did it. So, but now people do it during Christmas. They probably move on Christmas Day. They don't have the same romanticness about having Christmas. So the whole idea has changed. Some people are saying, I'm not going to have Christmas here. I'm going to be having a ski, or going to sit in the sun for Christmas. So the whole mindset has changed, and therefore the programs changed. But there were times when people did think before the school holiday started. So this particular time, what we call the spring market, was probably the hottest time, when people will say, right, we're going to move, we're going to do this, and then we're going to settle into our new home and so forth. So what I'm saying is that even in terms of timing, it's a good time when property would be sold anyway. And the sheer fact that there is lesser available just endorses the fact that the market is still relentless, it's still good, irrespective of the fact that the interest rates have been shown high, and they are still, by comparison, quite low to where they could be.
Yeah.
And so therefore people are motivated to get on and want to move home.
Yeah, historically the rates are still low, and the other thing about the buy-to-let mortgages part of this is that the number of lenders is reducing dramatically. So not only are prices on the 2 years and the 5-year fixes going up, but the number of products in the market is falling. But Chesterton's are the ones that have said that they've seen a 39% uplift in people looking to register to buy against April of last year. So that's 39% increase in a year. April to April. And they said that when they asked them why they were registering, the key reason was that because the Bank of England was thinking of putting its rate up on the 5th of May, which of course it did. Um, and now they're saying, with inflation looking to go up at 10% and further interest rate rises expected, guess what's going to happen? Yet more and more people panicking, getting onto the buying ladder, if you like, or registering to buy. And that's going to cause even more heating up of the prices in the market. So again, the market seems to be defying everything else that's going on around it, because people are scrambling to pick up something, and whether they make a sensible decision or not is, of course, anyone's guess in the frenetic times.
Yeah, the good thing about a sensible decision is the longevity of it. So even if it doesn't sound like a sensible decision here and now, the fact that they are you're in it to win it. You're into the situation. You do the property purchase, the move, do the redevelopment if that's what you're going to do. Do your extension and so forth. Then come 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you look back and you think actually it was probably the right decision to do. Yes, currently as we sit and speak, it may not sound too attractive, but hindsight's a great thing. And if I had probably got a penny for every person who told me over the last 40 years, in hindsight, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd done that, they'll probably look back and see, because we know that that one of the facts that you can't change is that it's actually gone either into neutral or gone forward. Very rarely, I mean, you've had some corrections, but very rarely has it actually had a reverse gear in all that time. So it is something that you got, and I think that's also a driver, Paul. This whole idea of home ownership and actually getting some sort of security in is actually a state of mind. It's part of our DNA here in the UK, that people want to own and buy ultimately their own home, to be able to put their own stamp on it and call it exactly that. And yes, of course, the investors will buy the buy to let, and we need every investor that is available to do that, because obviously there's a massive shortage of rental properties as well. And there's a massive shortage of properties that even the government can build and supply. And if they continue to do the things that they're doing, we're just going to get further and further away from actually doing the production of these new homes. So, long may the buy to let continue, and long may these lenders, support that. The interesting thing is that more recently, there's more articles in the rent to buy situation, that other institutions are now dipping their toes into buying rental property, or building and developing rental properties, so that they can meet the demand for a number of reasons. Subjects I think we covered previously. I think I covered it last week in some comment. But what I'm trying to say is that there are institutions that now are looking at their own portfolio and saying we can actually develop stock ourselves, and get into that market. And people like Legal in General are, big insurers, are looking to buy properties to rent, because they actually see a good return on it. Not only the return on a monthly or a weekly basis on the rental income, but the capital return on the growth that maybe in 5, 10 years time will go back into their pot. And
Well,
of course,
hold that thought. I'll say hold that thought, because I'm coming to that very, very shortly. But Guy says, interestingly, in the US, the market is also strong, and people are now considering buying due to attractive fixed rate options. I believe in the UK there are still some attractive fixed rate options, which there is indeed. What's interesting that Chesterton said, although 39% more people registering to buy, and they're all saying, I need to get on the ladder quickly, I need to close the sale before the interest rate rises again. The fact of the matter is that those 39% extra people are chasing 15% fewer properties on the market at the moment. And they've also seen a 35% drop in the number of sellers who are willing to negotiate on the price. So we're in another cauldron, and it's being stoked very, very efficiently, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, well, I asked you to hold that thought, Joe, because this is, and you mustn't say I told you so, and I've done this just to make you feel good. But this story really does prove what you say to us every week, Joe. So buy-to-let property, so we're talking BTL here, buy-to-let has delivered better returns than stocks, bonds and gilts over a 10-year period. So you've always said, oh, you're better than sticking it in a building society or an investment. But hey, It's not just
I
that;
just
it's the
want to give it a
stocks.
massive double thumbs up there. You see that?
So, and there are figures to prove it. So I just thought we'd run through them because it's quite interesting. So here's your buy to let, right? 50 grand cash investment on a 4-bedroom buy to let in Sheffield worth £190,000. Okay, you've got 2.5 grand of fees, 147,000 mortgage at 297 a month on a long-term fixed rate at 2.5%. Your rental income is 850 a month. So your profit in the first year will be 4,638, rising to 6,225 in the final year. The overall profit, therefore, at that point would be 54,000. Then you add in, as you said a moment ago, the capital growth. You've got 2.1% each year. In 10 years, the property would be worth 229,079 quid, which is a rise of 39,079. End of your 10 years, 93,185 pounds, which is a great investment by anyone's judgment. And then if you go and have a look, if you've done the same as a cash investment in the stock market, your 50 grand, historically returning 5.3% every year over 6 decades. That's the company stocks. So your profit in your first year, 2,525. Therefore, your profit over 10 years, 81,833. And if we look at gilts and bonds at the bottom there, your cash investment of 50 grand delivers 63,693. Now you can say, I told you so.
I told you so.
So it's
And
proof.
I've been saying so ever since we started Property Matters,
Yep.
week in, week out. And here we have, the proof. It's good to see, and yes, it's good to gloat for a moment. But the reality of it is that, I've always said people have more control on their properties, buy to let or assets. They just don't have the control on somebody else is controlling your money. So you're relying on that person's view. And then if something happens in that marketplace, there's nothing you can do about it. Those have been my concerns. Not that we're doing an advice or we're qualified advice. It's just pure general view of experience that says that people I've dealt with, and I'm sure people like Guy has dealt with, people like to touch it. I mean, if it's lying empty, doing nothing, you still know it's there. But unfortunately, when you buy these stock market things, it's a wing and a prayer that it goes in the right direction. And if it doesn't go in the right direction, they go, sorry about that. It just didn't work out. And you've lost your money. But at least with a property, if the tenant hasn't moved in or for some reason something hasn't worked, you still got control. You can actually go there and sort that out yourself. So, I told you so. I'm just going to say it.
And of course, the other thing is the stock market has the volatility. If you look back to the 24th of February, when Russia invaded Ukraine, FTSE shares fell by 2.8% in a day. So, and with a property, you're relatively, so to speak, protected from that. I should say that this is analysis provided by Sequoia Property Investments. So thank you to them for doing the numbers for us. But that really is a stark reminder of just how valuable property investment can be, and why one of the reasons we turn up here every Sunday morning to talk about it and have such enthusiasm for it.
And if you look at only this week, look what happened to that not real money, as we call it. It's just lost its bottom. Pretty much, loads of people lost millions and millions and billions of pounds because something somewhere else didn't go the way it was. Again, there's always people that would look to find a way to try and make money, but we know at Property Matters, and we know through the experience that I've had and the people that I know, that bricks and mortar in the United Kingdom as an island, which has only a certain amount of land they can build in. It's a supply and demand. You just can't go wrong, really, to a large extent. People from all over the world step here to invest in property, and all I encourage is all the people that we have in the UK should always try and step up where they possibly can and get their first run on the ladder, so that it puts them into some sort of future, and they too then can become part of our Property Matters program and gloat and say, see, we've heard it there, and they did all right.
And let's just close with a quick look at an investment this week, which you've got on auctionproperty.co.uk. This is Glanover Road in Wembley, Joe.
Yeah, great location actually. This particular property that we're offering, good income. it's interesting. Here is a way of understanding how people can control or devise a new way of increasing rentals. This particular client does what they call nightly rents here. So basically, if somebody wants to, or even a council has a tenant that or a potential that's been made homeless or there's a problem, what they do is they find accommodation, be it a room or a studio part of this particular building, and generating, almost £100,000 a year in income from this particular size of property. So a great return on investment, very near a station. So again, a lot of youngsters that want to sort of move into places like that short term, and it's in our auction on the 24th, ready for someone to actually continue making that money. We're guiding at £1.2 million. Make me an offer that I can't refuse, as I always say, and we'll do business. But yeah, a great way of dissecting an investment. So it's not just a house, it's not just a flat. It's there. They've turned it into a HMO, providing room lets on a nightly basis that increases the potential of income, and reduces the number of rooms that may be lying empty at any one time. So a great investment. Look forward. Anybody who wants to have a look at that, please give me a call.
It's been a busy show, Joe, and we've covered a hell of a lot today. So thank you, as always, for your input. Thank you for watching. Hope you found that very useful today. And one thing for sure, we'll be back with another Property Matters at the same time next week.